This is the Drug Delivery Spotlight. My name's Jay Duker. I'll be moderating the session. I'm also going to start out with a brief but shallow overview of the space, ophthalmic drug delivery in 2019. So as you are obviously aware, because you're all in this space, it's very big and getting bigger. Estimates are ophthalmic sales of drugs in the United States is about a $30 billion a year business, slightly less than 50% of the worldwide sales, and it does look like the growth is going to be 4% to 6% for the foreseeable future. What's driving that is the incidence of eye disease is going up, new innovations such as the ones you're going to hear about shortly, and the fact that vision is important both to individuals and society. People who are not blind can work, pay taxes, and not be a burden to their families. And I think most countries realize it's money well spent. If you take a macro view of this and say, where are we going? What are the big trends? The first big trend is going to be new pathways, new mechanisms of action. And that's really where I think in some ways some of the biggest blockbusters will be in the next 5 to 10 years. Witness the revolution the anti-VEGFs have been in my area in retina in the last decade. The second thing is new drug delivery systems, and that's really what we're going to be talking mostly about this afternoon. For those who haven't seen that, that's an eye that has one of the refillable ports for Lucentis. So these new delivery systems, I think in some ways will supplant the old traditional drug delivery for the eye, which I've listed here. Topical drops are here to stay. As much as I'd like to tell you that sustained release drug delivery systems are going to make them obsolete, the answer is no, it's not. Subconjunctival, subtenons, retrobulbar injections are all easy to do in the office. What we like are drugs that hang around a little longer. Of course, intravitreal injections with a TB syringe and a 30-gauge needle are very inexpensive, very easy to do, and very well tolerated by patients. But there's certainly room for more innovation there. Punctal devices, you're going to see more of these. And there's one that we'll talk about briefly, is just FDA approved. I'm not going to talk at all about systemic, and the reason is ophthalmologists don't like to give systemic drugs. They just don't. And that anyone trying to develop a systemic drug for an ocular indication has some significant barriers there. So if you talk about sustained drug release, what do we have now? What's commercially available? Well, Ozurdex by Allergan's been around for a while to release steroid. That's a picture of an Ozurdex inside the eye. That center picture, that's a Retisert implant. That technology was first FDA approved over 20 years ago for ganciclovir. Was a ganciclovir implant called Vitrasert, which is no longer available because CMV retinitis hardly exists anymore. iPoint has had 2 FDA-approved products in the last year. DexiQ, and that red arrow on the right points to a little DexiQ droplet inside the eye. That's steroid given after cataract surgery. Utiq is approved for uveitis, and it's essentially the same thing as Iluvien, which is Alimera's product, and that is sustained-release steroids for diabetes. Ocular Therapeutics just got Dextenza approved for post-cataract pain, and that is a punctal device for slow release. And I have Kala there, Inveltis, which is a steroid drop, which has a very unique technology to help it penetrate into the eye. I gave it an asterisk, though, because some might say, well, drops, you've had drops for years. Why is that, something sustained release? I think it's because drops still are open to new technology with new mechanisms of action and also new ways to deliver them. And I think this is another generation of drops, and so I included it in the list. So what are our unmet needs? I already mentioned it, new mechanisms of action. Prolonged mechanism of action. Those of you who could develop an anti-VEGF that reliably lasts 3 to 4 months would have an incredible blockbuster drug. We'd like improved patient compliance. That's especially true in glaucoma. And we'd like the ability to easily and controllably deliver more than one drug at the same time. And I mentioned compounding pharmacies there because I don't know if you may or may not be aware that compounding pharmacies have really entered this market, especially with respect to post-cataract drug delivery. And they are able to put together multiple FDA-approved drugs into one delivery system inexpensively. Of course, they're not subject to the same rules that the rest of the biotech and pharma industry are, but this is something you do need to be aware of because it's estimated that they may get up to 30% of the marketplace for post-cataract drug delivery in the near future. And of course, patent protection, that might not be very innovative, but it's certainly a goal of some companies. So I've listed here devices, methods in the 21st century that you can look for. I mentioned 21st century drops already, using smaller volumes of drops, using actually mechanisms to deliver the drops more directly and easily. There are several companies working on that. We've got drug-eluting contact lenses, drug-eluting punctal plugs, drug-eluting intraocular lenses, drug-eluting subconjunctival devices, suprachoroidal delivery for drugs and gene therapy, intracameral injections like the DEXYCU, intravitreal injections, they're here to stay as well. Refillable port, if that is FDA approved, I think you're going to see it for other medications as well. And of course, gene therapy as drug delivery, not to alter bad genes, but to actually use therapeutic proteins, and finally, cell therapy. So just to list some of the big indications, I can't list them all with the interest of time, but you're going to see dry eye drugs being developed, IOP-lowering medications. There's at least 10 programs out there that I'm aware of with sustained release for IOP-lowering medications. Corticosteroids, we've got a lot of them already, but there's more on the way. And also the anti-VEGFs. And I listed some of the companies in the anti-VEGFs because I'm a retina specialist, and I think they're the most important. But we've got longer-acting molecules just this week. Novartis's brolucizumab was FDA approved. We've got the refillable port, which data should be out in a year. Hydrogels, microparticles, Kodiak, Ocular Therapeutics, and Graybug are all working on those. And of course, gene therapy, Regenxbio, and Adverum. Two things to keep in mind, those of you who are developing these type of medications, along with the necessity of being innovative and getting these through trials, we have two masters to serve. The first is the FDA, and I got to remind you that decreasing the treatment burden is not an FDA approvable endpoint, not right now. And so if you've got monotherapy, you've got to test it, and you're testing against an approved therapy. It only has to be non-inferior. But if you're going to do combination therapy, it has to show superiority in visual acuity, intraocular pressure, or some other measurement. And finally, you may have the greatest innovation in the world, and if the payers are not going to pay for it, the business will not be successful. And so having the ability to convince the payers that your innovation is terrific is going to be really important as well.